So in this segment, we're going to be talking about the secret court scheme in the UK-Australia deal, and these courts and this system, these mechanisms are extremely dodgy, because what it does is it allows a company to sue a government over lost profits. So this was a thing which people discussed a lot during the TTIP deal. I think that was between America and the EU and multiple other states. And basically what it allowed is if a company perceived to have lost profits because of a government change in policy, they could sue that government. Sometimes they're not that successful in suing the government, but the reasons that they normally do it is they hope for a settlement out of the government where the government won't change tack, but what they do is they just have to pay the company out. And Australia have been hit with a massive legal bill, according to this article, where they had to pay, I think it was about 24 million Australian dollars, which we'll discuss it when we get there, but that's a lot of money for the taxpayer, and you got to think that a lot of these companies could do that. You could see class actions and stuff like that against sovereign governments, which we've already seen. It's mentioned in this article, and it's horrible, to be honest. Take back control and then give it to corporations, give it to the rich. That's what's happened. That's what Brexit has done. So, a free trade deal between the UK and Australia is on course to include a controversial system of secret courts that allow businesses to seek compensation in their profits if their profits are hit by government policies. We've seen Richard Branson, I think it's Virgin Health or something like that, sue the NHS over contracts, and this will happen en masse, because you've got to think that if any of these private companies want to get into the UK healthcare system, they could end up just suing the government and trying to force settlements out of them. That's what could happen here. In a move that has alarmed trade unions and anti-poverty campaigners, Trade Minister Greg Hands said UK negotiators were in talks with Australian officials over proposals to include a scheme that will arbitrate on disputes behind closed doors. So behind closed doors, in secret, basically. Not to mention the fact that we still don't know the official details of the UK-Australia deal, purely because we can't scrutinise trade deals until they've been signed. So we can't scrutinise them until the deal is done, basically. It's like you can't block until you've been punched in the face repeatedly. That's what's going to happen here. Trade Secretary Liz Truss said last week that a deal would be in the best interest of the UK economy and its exporters would benefit from unfettered access to Australian markets. Would be in the best deal of the interest in the UK economy. How is it in the best interest for the UK economy to allow a system where the taxpayer will constantly get sued? Is this going to be your way of lowering standards in the UK because you're going to be like, if we don't lower standards, we're going to get sued repeatedly? Is that the tactic here? Because this is not in the best interest of the British people. This really isn't. Until now, the most controversial element of the proposed deal has been a plan to scrap tariffs and quotas on Australian agricultural products. This was the big thing that people are talking about, and then we find out this secret court thing exists, and we're just like, wow. Our standards, for you were low. The bar was really low, but holy hell, you failed to even jump the extremely low bar we put down. This deal will only give 0.01 or 0.02 onto the economy in terms of GDP, right? What happens when we start getting sued by these companies? Do you think that number will go down? In terms of, actual benefit to the taxpayer? We could end up getting sued and just losing millions. The decision to include an investor-state dispute settlement ISDS scheme will allow firms to sue governments when they believe policies have left them out of pocket, could spark even more protests. I mean, we've already seen certain corporations are more powerful than countries, right? This will make them even more powerful over, powerful developed countries where they can just constantly sue. This is insane. Imagine a company like Apple or Tesla, any one of these huge kind of $billion, $trillion companies, right, suing a government, and they could get the Galacticos of lawyers, the best lawyers in the world, just to constantly sue the government and cause us problems and just cost us, millions in legal fees and get settlements out of us. We've already seen, I think it's Qatar, the owners of the Man City football team do that to UEFA, where they're just going to sue UEFA into oblivion through the courts. That's what these companies will try and do to the British government. That's what they could do to us. They could just sue us into oblivion, constantly coming out with new legal cases against us, and racking up millions upon millions in legal fees. This is scary stuff here, guys. ISDS is a system of private courts convened in camera and arbitrated by judges, allowing firms to bypass domestic civil courts. So this will be like an international tribunal sort of thing. So you know when they said take back control, we don't want the European Court of Justice and all these non-British courts ruling over us. Well done, you're going to have a corporate court ruling over these things. Corporations can decide these judges depending on how the panel is set up. We don't know the details because Liz Truss refuses to tell us, because take back control and we want control over our laws, money and borders. Mate, we don't even know what's in the trade deals we're signing right now. Like this is scary stuff, guys. And if we agree, by the looks of things, to this ISDS system, do you not think the Canadians will want a similar system, or the Americans, or the Brazilians? Or, the Latin Americans, whichever countries, any country that we sign an agreement with that has strong corporate lobbies will push for this, because they will constantly sue us. Especially when you think of the strong, public sector things that we have in this country, schools, hospitals, NHS, police. They could start suing these sorts of groups in order to get, a cut of the money, contracts. These ISDS things were conceived by Western multinationals to protect them against the seizure of their assets in the aftermath of a coup or by a rogue state. For example, a mine being nationalised without reasonable compensation. So the whole reason behind this is they want to stop, countries nationalising assets, essentially. That's one of the main reasons behind it. And, that's wrong. If a country wants to nationalise an asset, they should be able to. A company should get paid out according to the contracts. But the reason why they've done this is, once again, to protect themselves. That's why these ISDS courts exist. In recent decades, they have evolved to include indirect expropriation, by which any government measure that affects the actual or expected profits of business can be challenged. Expected profit. So if you say that, we expect this coal mine or this coal power plant to, make us, say, 500,000, right? You might not make anywhere near that amount, but you're saying, it's expected profit. This is the money we expect to make. You could sue over that. You can make more money out of that. This is. I can't believe this is happening. No, I can, but I don't know how to explain it, guys. Recent ISDS cases brought against governments include Swedish energy firm Vattenfall suing Germany for policies that cut water pollution. So these companies are suing a government because they wanted to cut the amount of water pollution. Okay, that sounds great, doesn't it? US drugs giant Eli Lilly suing Canada for trying to reduce medicine prices. So down with cutting water pollution, down with reducing medicine prices. And French multinational Veolia, suing Egypt for increasing national minimum wage. So if you want to increase the national minimum wage in your country, reduce medicine prices, or cut water pollution, you could get sued by these companies. You could get sued by them. Imagine your country trying to do what's in its own best interest, increasing the national minimum wage, and you get sued by one of these scummy companies. This is shocking behaviour, because let's not forget here, these companies, their number one aim is for profit, so they don't care if they have to screw over taxpayers, they don't care if they have to screw over workers. This is it. Shadow Trade Minister Emily Thornberry said it would be deeply worrying if the government is using the very first post-Brexit deal written from scratch to hand major corporations power to charge regulations that affect their profits, restricting our ability as a country to introduce new laws to protect the environment, public health, and the rights of workers and consumers. So that's it. They're giving corporations way more power than they ever had when we were a member of the EU. You make the point that, look, these are EU countries that are being sued. Some of these are, Germany and France are. The fact that these, ISDS, cases or courts or whatever exist, these should be outlawed. They should be outlawed. And that's something the EU could potentially do if they wanted to. They could outlaw these, but the UK can't do that, because we're in a position now where we have to agree to this sort of junk deals, because otherwise we won't get a deal. Thornberry goes on to say it is yet another reason why the proposed trade deal needs proper scrutiny and debate rather than being rushed in secret for a signing ceremony at the G7. Because that's the goal, sign it at the G7. This is, a major, bat signal to tell all the other countries we're a soft touch and we'll accept rubbish like this. We'll accept your hormone beef, potentially, lamb and sheep and whatever the chemicals you've injected your animals with. And not only that, we're going to allow your corporations to sue our government if we want to make any kind of changes to improve the quality of life in this country. Well done, Liz. Well done. Nick Dearden, the director of Global Justice Now, said the Australian company behind a planned coal mine in Cumbria could sue the government for halting or delaying the project for environmental reasons. So, congratulations, Cumbria, you're going to get a coal mine that could cause environmental damage, and you can't do anything about it, because if you dare speak out, if you dare criticize this coal plant, you could get sued. You could get sued by this government, by an Australian company. That's what could happen here. Shocking behaviour. Right now, the Dutch government is being sued in these courts for daring to phase out coal power, so we know fossil fuel companies won't hold back, and we know the future is in green energy. But these companies will hold on as long as they can to fossil fuels. And this company here might not even win, but these companies don't always aim to win. They just aim to get settlements and to cost the taxpayer a lot. So when the next one comes in, the government just say, all right, look, we'll just settle out of court. The EU planned to include ISDS in a free trade deal with the US during talks started with President Obama, but was forced to drop the measure after a series of marches and protests across the continent. So the EU isn't perfect here, because the EU proposed an ISDS court. But the simple fact is, because the EU is such a powerful bloc, they don't have to do this in a trade deal with countries like Australia or New Zealand. Maybe the US is different. It's a special case because of how powerful it is. It can compete with the EU in a lot of regards. But at the same time, the simple fact is the EU should never have proposed an ISDS court. It's very stupid. But, thankfully this TTIP deal didn't actually go through. It's put on ice. And I don't know if Biden actually wants to touch it either, despite the fact that he was Obama's VP. But I think these courts will face massive protests. The problem is, in the UK, we actually don't really know that this ISDS thing is happening, because these trade deals have been done under hush, because Parliament voted for not having scrutiny over these deals. That's the difference here. When they talk about taking back control, we haven't, because we've made trade deals less transparent than before. We don't actually know what's in the specifics of this deal. We don't even know what's in the UK-Japan deal. Talk about, when people made the case that, if I don't like my local MP, I can vote them out. It's like, no, you can't, because we live in a first past the post system. It's very difficult. Dude, you can't even see the trade deals that we're signing right now. Talk about taking back control. These courts, Dearden goes on to say, these courts would allow Australian companies to extract eye-watering payouts from the government for taking action on anything from climate change to workers' rights, tying the hands of governments for a generation or more. And this will be the length of the trade deal. And we don't know, trade deals I don't think have dates. So you'd have to kind of repeal it in Parliament. I don't even know how feasible that is. Nick Crook, head of the international relations at Unison, said Australia already knows what ISDS means. Tobacco giant Philip Morris tried to sue Australia after it sought to pass plain packaging legislation to protect public health. That's it. All they tried to do was introduce plain packaging onto the cigarettes. So could you imagine in the UK, when we try to add those pictures that show you what happens to your lungs if you smoke too many cigarettes, and then a big tobacco company sues the government over it. So, it goes on to say although Australia eventually won, it cost the Australian taxpayer $24 million. Australian dollars. I think that might be American dollars. No, that's Australian dollars. Sorry. Australian taxpayer, 24 million Australian dollars fighting the case in private investment tribunals. And it's not clear whether these countries can actually claim back the legal costs, because it might be the case that in these agreements that the taxpayer can't do it. So potentially the Australian taxpayer spent 24 million Australian dollars just to be able to introduce plain packaging on cigarette packets. That's all they tried to do. Nothing major. Didn't try to increase the age of smoking or anything like that. And this is what's happened here. They got sued. $24 million worth of taxpayer money gone. And this is what will happen in the UK. We're going to see a lot more of this stuff, I think. And this is just shocking. Take back control, but give it to corporations. That should have been on a bus. Anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.